Straight all day.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is the 4 steps to any change. Before we get into this, let me tell you, when I have a daily motivation text that I send out free of charge every single morning, I want you to text me while you are listening to this episode and tell me the best insight, the best breakthrough, the best idea, the best light bulb moment you got from listening to this episode here today. Make sure you tell me the number that you're listening to so I know which one you're talking about. At my number, 305-384-6894, and you will automatically become part of my text community, and you will be receiving the daily motivation text every morning when it gets sent out because you are a member of the texting community. Secondly, the next step to work with me, who is an expert, that's me, the expert when it comes to mindset, strategy, systems, and execution for professionals who are serious about going where you want to go and in this lifetime, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. If you want to be coached by me, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. You want to get access to my courses like Bulletproof Mindset, 30 Days to Discipline, Next Mission, Business Builder, ASAP Confidence, Content Machine course, People Skills. You want to get access to those? Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. So that's it. Let's get into the topic. 4 steps to any change. This one, I don't have to lay out too much of a background or introduction to the topic because the 4 steps are going to tell us exactly what we need to know. But the definition of the word change, I will tell you, is to either make something different, alter or modify, or to replace something with something else, especially something of the same kind that is newer or better. Those are good definitions. So now let's get into it. If you want to make change, you want to do something different with your life, these are the 4 phases that you must go through. Then understand that the speed at which you go through these phases is up to you. You can go through these phases relatively quickly. You can go through these phases slowly. It is up to you. You can go through the 4 phases of change in 2 seconds if you want to. You go through the phases of change in, I'm just looking at my points here, so I make sure I'm not saying something that's not actually true. And yes, you can go through the 4 phases of change in 2 seconds. You can go through the 4 phases of change over 2 years. You can get stuck on one of these steps of change and never actually make change, because if you don't go through all 4, you will not make change. You will not see change. So let's get into it. Let's talk about it. What are the 4 steps to any change that you want to make in life? First step, point number 1, identification. The first step to making change is identifying that keeping things the same is clearly not working. This is the first step. This is a step that, along with the other steps in this process, not everybody gets to. So these steps are similar, again, to the pyramid, like I talked about in yesterday's masterclass, of the levels of the game, is that actually making change in life, doing something different in life, most people never do this. You've heard me say this many times. The law of inertia states that an object in motion shall remain in motion, or an object that is not in motion shall remain not in motion until or unless acted upon by an outside force. These are also known as momentum and stagnation, respectively. The reason why most people do not change in life is because of the law of inertia. Most people get to a certain stage or state and they stay there, whatever it is, whether it's positive, negative, going good, going bad, neutral, anywhere in between. Most people get to a certain state or stage and they pretty much stay exactly there for the rest of their lives. Even if they identify it, that doesn't actually mean you did anything, right? So understand that this change thing, most people don't do this. Even though most people say they're going to, I'm going to explain to you here today why most people don't make change, because I'm going to go through these 4 steps and you're going to find out where you're talking a good game, but you're not actually doing it, if this happens to be you. Right? Not everybody gets even to step 1 of this process. The first step to making change is identifying that what you're doing right now ain't good enough and you need something different. That's the first step. How many people do you know who is doing something right now that is not good enough for where they claim they want to be, yet they have not yet come to the conclusion that you've come to? How many people do you know who are not in good shape, but if you ask them if they're in good shape, if you ask them about their shape, they have a rationalization that makes it okay for them to be in the not good shape that they're in? All right, any of you know anybody who fits that description? Of course you do. We all know at least one person who fits that description. And guess what? This person has not even got to step one of identification, that this is a problem. All right, until you identify that something's a problem, you ain't changing. If you are rationalizing your situation, then you're not going to change. All right, this is, again, why most people never change in life, because they come up with rational lies. That's what rationalization means, rational lies, as to why their situation is okay and should just stay exactly as it is. So I'm actually going to do an entire masterclass on this concept of rationalization in the very near future. So stay tuned for that. First thing required for anybody to make a change is identifying that the status quo is no longer good enough and no longer acceptable. Some people are okay with maintaining the status quo their entire lives. Most people are. I shouldn't even say some people, most people. Thus, most people never need to go through the process of change. So this is the first step. All right, you're already ahead of most people who need change but haven't actually done it once you identify. Do you know anyone who has some things in their lives that are not working, yet they will not acknowledge that these things are not working? If so, this is how you understand why this is the first step towards change. Again, many people never get to this step. So if you don't take this step, you can't take the next one. All right, they are steps, you cannot skip them. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is the 4 steps to making any change in life. Step number 2, something needs to change. The second thing that has to happen if you're going to make change in life is you must not only acknowledge that something ain't right, but you also have to acknowledge that you need to do something about it. Or something needs to happen about it. Because you could acknowledge that something's not good in your life and be okay with that. Again, how many people do you know have a circumstance or situation in their lives where things are not good, and they will even admit to you that they're not good, yet they have not resolved to do something about the thing that's not good? They're just okay with things not being good. Any of you know anybody like this? These people who get past step 1 but they fail at step 2. These are the kind of people that probably annoy, anger, and frustrate you. These are the people who make your head spin, because at least they acknowledge that there's an issue, but they don't want to do anything about it. They're just okay with being where they are. They have not decided that something needs to actually change. They know there's an issue, but they ain't doing it. They have not decided to do something. After identifying that something's not working, the next thing that you must do to make change is acknowledge that whatever is not working needs to be different. This seems very simple, right? This is why I told you can go through the entire 4 phases of change in 2 seconds. Or it could take you 2 years, or it could take you 10 years, or it could take you never. Again, there are people who can identify that something's not working, but be okay with that. All right, it's not working. All right, I know it's not working. I ain't doing nothing. The second step is looking at all the things, identifying all the things that are not working, or the things that are no longer acceptable, that you do want to actually work, so that you will need to make some changes in order to make these things work. See, some people are okay with things not working and leaving them exactly as they are. Some people are all right with that. All right, things ain't working, you know what, I'm all right with that. Just leave it how it is. So this mindset is a decision that you must come to, that an adjustment is in order. You have to get in your mind, all right, we need to adjust this. I can't leave this how it is. This is the person who's out of shape deciding, all right, you know what, I'm going to get in shape now. Or the person who's not making enough money deciding, I'm going to make more money now. The person who's in an unhealthy relationship deciding, I'm going to get out of this unhealthy relationship. There are people in all of these situations who just don't change them. They just stay there. And listen, that's their right. They have a right to do that. They want to do it. It's their choice. That's why this is a clear step in the process for change. 60% of the change process takes place in step number 2. So the entire process, all 4 steps, I haven't even given you the last 2 yet. If this whole thing was 100%, 60% of change in life takes place at step number 2, when you decide that whatever is going on now, the status quo, is no longer okay and it needs to be different. As soon as you make that decision, you've done 60% of the work required to make change. Right here at this step. And this is why many of us, actually, I will go as far as to say every single person listening to this today, including myself, has had situations in our lives that we have already identified are not what we want, yet we took an extended period of time, meaning more than like 2 seconds, to actually say, you know what, this has to change. This is why 60% of change takes place right here. Because people will rationalize and tell themselves stories about why a thing that's not good is fine and livable and survivable forever. People will go on and just tell themselves this forever before they actually do anything about it. All right, this happens over and over again in life. 60% of change takes place right here. And since you've heard me already say most people never change, is because they never get through this step of I need to do something different. Because telling yourself that you need to do something different is putting an expectation and a responsibility on yourself to actually take action. And most people don't even want to think about that, let alone do they actually want to do it. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is the 4 steps required for any change to take place. Number 3, I'm going to make a change, and you begin taking steps to do so. Now, this here is rarefied air when you get to this point. I am actually going to make a change because I've decided that this is not okay and it needs to be different. And you start actually taking the steps for the change to really occur. You broke through. You got past the 60% part. Or most of the work, the emotional work, let's say, the emotional work, most of it has been done by this point. Because now you're taking steps to do something different. Now that you've made it clear, something's not working, you decided that it needs to change, here's where you actually start doing something that will make change come about. This is the person who's out of shape going to the gym and actually signing up for a gym membership. Oh, amazing. Or a person hiring a personal trainer when you've been overweight for the last 10 years. Or the person who wants to do better in business, buying a ticket to a conference or signing up for a course or hiring a coach or joining a mastermind. They've actually taken the step that will lead them in the direction of what they want. This 3rd step is the action step of actually doing something to start the process of making change occur. I want you to pay very close attention to my wording here because there's another step after this. You might think that this is where the bulk of people get stuck, but it's not. It's step number 2 is where people get stuck. People do not get stuck on the action step. If you decide that you're going to make more money, well, the first thing you can do is go look around and say, okay, well, how much money am I trying to make? How do I want to make it? Who can help me do it? You can have that thought process go through your mind in 5 seconds. You can start looking for the people. Then when you find the right person, all right, see what they have to offer. You sign up for it. This doesn't take a long time. It's not the part of taking a step that's hard. It's the decision that you're going to take a step that's hard. It's getting out of your own head. It's breaking the inertia. It's stop telling yourself the rational lies about the situation that is not okay. You finally come to the conclusion that is not okay and actually doing something. That step of doing something is the last part. It's all the emotional garbage that you got to fight through. That's the part that is the hard part. And you've seen the movie Shawshank Redemption. You remember when a guy broke out of jail? He broke out of the prison finally and he had to crawl through like all that sewage and stuff in order to get to freedom. All right, that right there is the mental garbage that you got to get through in step number 2. You got to crawl through all of that mental garbage, all of your inertia, all of your mental conditioning about why everything is okay, even though you know it's not okay. And that's the part that you got to get through in order to get to the step 3, which is actually, getting out of the pipes, and he's actually can smell free land. All right, that's step 3. You're there now. It's a decision to actually do something that is where most change occurs. I told you this in episode 2434. Most people don't change simply because of their arrogance and their conditioning to rationalize their situation. It's not ignorance. It's not that you don't know. It's not stupidity. It's not that you don't know and you just keep doing bad stuff. It's that you actually do know. It's that you're just too arrogant to admit that you need to do something different and that what you have going on ain't working. That's arrogance. That's not ignorance. Point number 4. Today's topic, once again, is the 4 steps that must be undergone for any change to occur. And I want everybody to keep in mind that, again, these 4 steps, you can go through these steps in the snap of a finger, or it could take you a decade. Point number 4 is your change action is actually undergone. What does that mean? The change action is undergone. That means you actually do the thing that you were supposed to do. You might think that the 3rd step is the final step. You went to the gym, you signed up for the membership. You bought a ticket to the conference, you signed up for the course, you hired the coach. You might think that's the final step. No, it is not. Beginning to take the action to make change is one thing. But actually following through on the action is a completely different thing. There's levels to signing up for something and then actually doing what you signed up for. Again, person who decided that they want to get in shape, you joined the gym, you hired the trainer. Now what you got to do? Now you got to actually go to the gym every day. You got to actually come to the personal training sessions and actually do the workouts. All right, that's a different step. That's not the same as signing up. Any of you who sells, let's say courses, for example, any of you who does conferences, anybody who writes books, you should know, if you don't already, you should know that most of that material does not get consumed. Your courses do not get consumed fully by most of the people who sign up for the course. Most of the people who buy your books don't read past chapter 2. This is statistically, these are stats, folks, actual facts. There are people who buy tickets to conferences and then don't even show up to the conference. Or people who buy tickets to the conference, show up to the conference, but don't do anything. They show up with no kind of game plan, don't really take notes. They sit there and listen, then they leave. Don't meet anybody, don't do anything. They have nothing to actually show for it other than maybe a couple pictures that they took on their phone. That's it. So just because somebody signed up for something does not mean they're actually going to get the result out of the thing, because many people don't follow through and actually take action on the things they sign up for. The act of signing up sometimes is enough to satisfy people. This is one of the reasons why I talk in my book, Work on Your Game. I tell people, don't tell the world your goals, because just talking about the goals and letting the world know that you have them, it creates a small sense of satisfaction inside of us that can lower our drive and ambition to actually follow through and reach the goal. See, having the goal is one thing, reaching the goal is another thing. Having the goal means you wrote it down, you set this as a goal, but actually doing the work that will reach the goal is another thing. And you take away a little bit of your drive to reach the goal when you talk about it, because now you get some satisfaction from telling somebody that you have one. Telling someone you have a goal is not the same as actually doing the work and, again, reaching it. Most courses that get signed up for do not get completely consumed. So if you created a 12 module course, sold it to a bunch of people, and you could take modules 10, 11, and 12, the last 3 modules of your course, and leave them completely blank, most people would never notice and would never say anything or complain to you, even though they paid for the course, because they never went through the first 9 modules to even get to module 10. They wouldn't even find out that the last 3 modules were empty because they never actually went to it. Anybody ever been in network marketing? Any of you with network marketing experience, let me ask you this question. You can laugh at this because as soon as you think about it, you're gonna laugh. How often do people put money into something and then do absolutely nothing? How many people you signed up who did absolutely nothing? They signed up, they paid money and did nothing. They never had a home party, they never sold one product, they never got one customer, they never recruited one person, never brought somebody else to a meeting, even after they signed up and paid their money. All right? Any of you ever seen that? Of course you have. See, this 4th step is the implementation step. This is the action step. And many people never follow through with this, even after they paid for the privilege of following through and taking action. See, paying to take action is one thing, taking action is another thing. If every gym in America had all their members, their paying members, come to the gym 3 times a week, many of the gyms would be over capacity and they would get shut down by the fire marshal, simply because most of the people who pay for gym memberships, a lot of gyms in America make the bulk of their money from non-attending paid members. Yes, you heard me correctly. Non-attending paid members, people who pay the membership. They get, their credit card gets hit every month to pay for the membership, but that person is never seen in the facility, even though they're paying for it. So just because you paid for it and you signed up does not mean anything. You still got to do the work. So what happens with a lot of people, they say that they want to make change, but they don't believe they're going to follow through. This is what happens with people too. And I hear this from people often in my line of work. People tell me that they know they want to make change. They know that I can help them, but they don't believe that they will follow through on the thing that they're going to invest in. So it's better to not invest at all. So these people stay stuck on step number 2. So do you understand why step number 2 is such a hard step for people? Because step number 2 is getting through your own mental bullshit. And until you get through your own mental bullshit, you'll never pass step number 2. Therefore, you can't get to step number 3 and step number 4. You're defeating yourself. And ironically enough, in many lines of work, the gym is one, business is another, personal and professional development are others. In many lines of work, it's the mental bullshit that is the very reason why the person is in a position where they need to make change in the first place. And then the mental bullshit is the very thing that stops them from making a change. That's the exact reason why you need to do it, not the reason why you don't need to do it. So the next time somebody tells me that, that's exactly what I'm gonna say to them. So all that said, let's recap today's class, which is the 4 steps to making any change. Point number 1, identification. This is the first step, is identifying that keeping things the same is clearly not working. Some people are okay with maintaining the status quo their entire lives, so they never get to step number 1. So understand that not everybody is even going to get to the first step in this. They don't take the first step, therefore they can't take the next ones. Number 2, you decide that something needs to change. After you identify that something's not working, listen, some people are okay with things not working. The next step is deciding that this needs to change. And when you decide that something needs to change, you are assigning yourself a job. You're telling yourself you got to do something different. Most people don't want to do that. Again, the law of inertia tells us, it applies to everybody, that most people just want to stay where they are and maintain the status quo. And this step right here is where 60% of change takes place or does not take place. Why? Because this requires you breaking the inertia and doing something different. It requires you becoming an outside force to change the way that you've been continually and habitually thinking that controls 85% of your life, 85% of your mindset. If you can't break through that, you will not get past step number 2. This is the main reason most people never change in life, because their mindset is holding them back from actually doing the thing that they're consciously telling themselves that they want to do. But your subconscious is 85% versus the 15% of your conscious. You will always lose that battle without some outside force. Again, outside force is what breaks inertia, not inside force. So that's why many people never change in life, because they can't break their own inertia. Number 3 is deciding you're going to make a change, and then you start taking steps to do so. So you went and signed up for something, you bought something, you registered for something, you told yourself you want to do something. The problem is, and point, as I talked about in 2434, most people don't change because they're too arrogant to stop rationalizing that an actual change is unnecessary. Number 4, change action is undergone. This is after you sign up for the gym, step number 3. Now is actually coming to the gym, step number 4. Actually doing the workouts is step number 4. Actually reading the book that you bought is step number 4. Actually showing up to the coaching sessions and applying what the coach told you to do, that's step number 4. Actually taking some actions and coming back to the group and reporting to the group what you did in the mastermind you signed up for is step number 4. If you don't take the action steps, then you have not completed step number 4. You will not make real change. There are people who are signed up to gym memberships and still not in shape. People who have hired courses and signed up for coaches and still haven't made any advancements personally or professionally. Why? Because they didn't show up. They didn't actually show up. What's the first thing I say in every introduction of this show? The discipline to show up day after day to do the work. You see how all this stuff is interconnected, people? I told you I'm an expert at what I do. All right, so if you want to make change at what you're doing, I don't care what it is, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com, sign up and get on a call with me. And let's talk about where you're at, where you want to go, and how we can take you where you need to go. Because this change thing, there's a process to this, and there's levels to this shit. I just talked about this in yesterday's episode. So if you're serious about making some change in your life, whatever it may be, you got to take the first step. Something needs to change, and I need to change it. That's at workonyourgameuniversity.com. Also, I want you to text me, tell me the best insight and best breakthrough you got from today's masterclass. My number is 305-384-6894. Send me a text right now. Tell me the best thing you got while it's fresh on your mind. Work on your game. Dre all day.